This video is sponsored by MyHeritage. One by one, they died in their sleep, thousands of miles from home. Their average age was 33. All but one of the 117 dead were healthy men. Something was killing Hmong men in their sleep, and doctors couldn't figure out what was causing their deaths. They had only spent a few months on American soil from their home country of Laos. There was no obvious cause of death. None of them had been sick, physically at least. Doctors gave their deaths a name, the kind that reeks of defeat and of the undetermined, a label that was on the edge of the known medical world. It was called Sudden Unexpected Nocturnal Death Syndrome, or SUNDS. But the Hmong didn't buy it because their families knew exactly what was killing their kin. It was called the Sog Suam, and it would want more blood. But what is the Sog Suam? And did the killings ever stop? Let's try and find out.
Hello, I'm Mike Droberg, a Marine Corps veteran and filmmaker, and we will try to answer these questions on today's episode of Forgotten History.
Could you become the next victim of the Sog Suam? Well, I decided to partner with MyHeritage to ensure I wouldn't be. Even though you cannot change your genetic makeup, knowing your family history can help you reduce your risk of developing health problems, as family members share their genes, and that's one of the reasons I partnered with MyHeritage. MyHeritage is the #1 family history service. It's fun and easy to build your family tree and discover your origins, and you may find new relatives you never knew about. Perhaps you're even related to a king or queen. Even if you don't know much about your family's origins, MyHeritage can find new family members and records of your ancestors for you with little effort using the Instant Discoveries tab. The site puts 19 billion records at your fingertips. I found my father's Ellis Island passenger list from 1953. It was very cool to see the exact date when he immigrated to the United States from Germany. You can even fix and liven up old photographs. Find out your own family history by building your own family tree now. Sign up for a 14-day free trial and enjoy all the amazing features MyHeritage has to offer. If you decide to continue your subscription, you'll get a 50% discount using this link, which will also be in the description box below. Now back to the story. Something was killing Hmong men in their sleep, and no one could figure out what it was. There was no obvious cause of death. The men weren't clustered together physically speaking, but they were united by their heritage and dislocation from Laos, but little else. Doctors announced the men died of Sudden Unexpected Nocturnal Death Syndrome, SUNDS. It didn't do much in terms of diagnosis or treatment, but it had to be called something. Over 25 years later, Shelley Adler's book pieced together what happened, drawing on interviews with the Hmong population and by analyzing scientific literature. Adler, a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, came to a stunning conclusion. In a sense, the Hmong were killed by their beliefs in the spirit world, even if the mechanisms of their death was likely an obscure genetic cardiac arrhythmia that is prevalent in Southeast Asia. By 1986, the Hmong deaths had slowed, but remained a striking epidemiological enigma. Alder was a graduate at UCLA studying traditional belief narratives at the time. She had been researching what is called nocturnal pressing spirit attacks, or what scientific literature called sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is known to just about all cultures, and it is almost always associated with nocturnal evil. In China, it's called the Bei Gui Ya, which translates to held by a ghost. The Hungarians know it as Bazokani Nayomis, witch pressure. In Newfoundland, the spirit that comes is called the Old Hag, and the experience of sleep paralysis is ag-rog, hag-ridden. The Dutch name comes closest to what English speakers know. They call the presence Nachtmerrie, the nightmare. The mare in question comes from the German Mar, or the Norse Mara, which denotes a generally female supernatural being who, in Adler's words, lay on people's chests, suffocating them. Across cultures, nightmare visits play out in very similar ways. Victims experience the strange feeling of being awake while they have a realistic perception of their environment they can't move. Worse, they feel an overwhelming fear and dread accompanied by chest pressure and difficulty breathing. Scientists have a pretty good grasp on how all of this happens. During sleep paralysis, a person experiences an out-of-sequence REM state. In REM, rapid eye movement sleep, we dream and our minds shut off the physical control of the body. We're supposed to be temporarily paralyzed, but we're not supposed to be conscious in REM sleep. Yet, that is precisely what happens during sleep paralysis. It's a mix of the brain states that are normally held separate. Some people who have an experience of sleep paralysis tend to feel that some horrible evil being is near them. I just knew this presence was there, an ominous presence. Not only could I see it, but I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't do anything, one victim told Adler. This feeling is consistent across cultures, even if it goes by different names and presents itself through the culture one knows. I myself experienced sleep paralysis when I came home from an 11-month deployment in Iraq. Standing in the doorway of my bedroom was a dark entity with snake-like hair, or perhaps he was an angry Rastafarian. I'm not quite sure, as it was really dark. It raised a decapitated head in my direction and grinned evilly. I screamed with my mouth fully open, yet emitted no sound. As the entity slowly neared, I was able to snap out of my paralysis. I threw my magic pillow at it to buy me some time as I jumped to my feet. When I looked towards the doorway again, it was gone. I woke up more scared than I had ever been in my life. But was it really there, or just a nightmare? Probably the latter, but at that moment, it did indeed feel real. But there is one big difference between sleep paralysis, which impacts a substantial percentage of the global population at least once, and what the Hmong immigrants experienced in the 1980s. The evil Rastafarian that I saw in my bedroom was terrifying, but harmless. But whatever happened in the night to the Hmong killed them. Adler studied the Hmong and their relationship to what they called the Sog Suam for years, and that research forms the core of her book. Adler collected dozens of experiences of sleep paralysis among the Hmong, both from her own interviews and from other researchers. One 49-year-old Adler interviewed provided this typical experience. I remember a few months after I first came here, I was asleep. I turned out the light and everything, and then, all of a sudden, I felt that I could not move. I just felt it, but I didn't see anything. But then I tried to move my hand, but I couldn't. I kept trying, but I couldn't even move. I knew it was the Sog Swam. I was so scared, I could hardly breathe. I thought, who will help me? What if I die? Adler found that the nightmare attacks were part of the beliefs held by both animists, which is the belief that inanimate objects can be alive, and the Christian Hmong. A powerful folklore had built up around the Sog Swam that included both causes and cures for the attacks. When the Hmong don't worship properly, do not perform their religious rituals properly, or forget to sacrifice, then the ancestor spirits or the village spirits do not want to guard them, one man explained to Adler. That's why the evil spirit is able to come and get them. And for a lot of reasons, the Hmong in the late 1970s and early 1980s were not able to worship properly. The ethnic group fought a guerrilla war against the government of Laos with US backing during the Vietnam War. When the Laotian communists won, many Hmong immigrated for the United States to avoid reprisals. The US government decided to scatter the Hmong randomly across the US to 53 different cities, breaking up immigration patterns we generally see. In short order, the Hmong organized and made a secondary migration to California, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. The immigrants ran into all kinds of problems making their way to the States. Highland Laos, where farming and hunting were the norm, was not Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Fresno. Unemployment was obscenely high, and the sense of community that many had enjoyed in the old country was gone. Some Hmong felt that they had not properly honored the memories of their ancestors, which was a known risk factor among the Hmong for being visited by the Sog Swam. Once the nightmare visitations began, a shaman was often needed to set things right. and in the scattered communities of the Hmong across the country, they might not have access to the right person. Without access to traditional rituals and shamans, the Hmong were unable to provide themselves the psychic protection from the spirits of their sleep. Drawing on all this evidence, Adler makes the provocative claim that the Laotian immigrants of the 1980s were in some sense killed by their powerful cultural belief in night spirits. It is my contention that in the context of severe and ongoing stress related to cultural disruption and national resettlement exacerbated by the intense feelings of powerlessness about existence in the United States, and from the perspective of a belief system in which evil spirits have the power to kill men who do not fulfill their religious obligations, Adler writes, the solitary Hmong men, confronted by the terror of the nightmare and aware of its murderous intent, can die of SUNDS. Her argument amounts to a stirring and chilling case for the power of nocebo, the flip side to the placebo effect. While placebo studies have grown in importance, the nocebo effect has not been studied well in scientific literature, in part because of the ethical issues involved in deliberately doing something that might harm people. Limited studies suggest that it is real and it is powerful. For example, doctors have found that patients made to feel anxious need larger amounts of opiates after surgery than other people. They found that pretending to expose people who say they are sensitive to electromagnetic radiation to cell phone signals can give them debilitating headaches. Even patients' levels of side effects from arthritis medication seem determined by those patients' belief about those medicines. Logically speaking, if the evidence shows the upside of a belief, why wouldn't we believe in the downside too? If you're still unsure that the Nocebo effect could lead to premature death, Adler cites one stunning example of the effect from China. A team of researchers found that Chinese Americans die younger than expected if they have a combination of disease and a birth year which Chinese astrology and medicine considers ill-fated. That is to say, if they were born in a year that was astrologically linked to poor lung health, they would die an average of 5 years earlier from lung-related disease than someone born in some other year with the same disease. Similar effects were not found in white populations around them. And how much sooner you died depended on the people's strength of commitment to traditional Chinese culture. So, if you were born under a bad astrological sign, you died 5 years younger from the same diseases as people born under good signs. Results like these seem improbable or anti-reason, but Adler's book uses her understanding of both science and traditional belief structures to argue for what she calls local biology. Since meaning has biological consequences, and meanings vary across cultures, biology can operate differently in different contexts, she writes. In other words, biology is local. The same biological processes in different places have different effects on people. The truth is, we don't understand the relationship between belief and biology quite as well as we'd like to think. The nightmare is a link between our biological and cultural selves. While people of all cultures experience sleep paralysis in similar ways, the specific form and intensity it takes varies by culture. Either way, the nightmare conjures up the monsters waiting in the darkness. Let us know if you have ever experienced sleep paralysis. We'd love to hear your story.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or show ideas, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again.